Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, we are going to discuss the downfall of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and if you're wondering and scratching your heads what the hell that's got to do with DC, it has everything to do with DC. James Gunn and Peter Safran are taking us into a deep dive into an interconnected DC universe named the DCU, DC Universe. So there's a lot of red flags in terms of what they're taking us into, although I'm really excited about what they're claiming they're going to do, and their mini slate so far, Gods and Monsters. I'm excited about all of that. But I think it would be a very interesting conversation to have to correlate and kind of connect the downfall of the MCU and to see if it is a good idea right now for the DCU to go into an interconnected universe. But first, here are your DC updates. It has been confirmed that Robert Pattinson will appear as Batman and Bruce Wayne from the Batman movie in the Batman sequel, The Penguin HBO Max series, starring Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. So Robert was always going to basically play his Batman and his Bruce Wayne in this series, because as I say, this is a literal sequel to the Batman. It basically is I think an hour after the Batman movie finishes, so literally it continues. It shows us the rise to power of Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, in this series. I think it's going to be excellent, and I think you're going to see other actors playing the parts they played from the first movie. I expect to see Commissioner Gordon. I expect to see Selena Kyle. I expect to see everyone in this series. Now, I don't want to kind of misinform you and make you think we're going to see a lot of Robert Pattinson in this series, but he's definitely going to appear. But this is Colin Farrell's Oswald Cobblepot's series, and there is no question about that. So yes, it's exciting. We've got so many things to be excited about in the DC universe next year, this year. So yeah, Robert Pattinson will appear in the Penguin series, and I couldn't be happier about that. Now, Jason Momoa has posted the Flash movie trailer that was released at the Super Bowl last Sunday, and he said this: "I love this movie, I can't wait to see it. I love you, Ezra." Now this has got Jason Momoa lots and lots of stick. And now, basically, I don't think that this is warranted stick, by the way. You've got to understand that Jason is coming from an informed place. Clearly, he's friends with Ezra Miller. Now, to be clear, it looks like when Ezra Miller had his breakdown, he wasn't communicating with anyone. I mean, we've had loads of people talk about Ezra and say, look, he's just not talking to any of us. The comic book legend who wrote, who tried to pitch a Flash script with Ezra, and they wrote that together, right? I forgot his name now. But he said that when he worked with him, he was a great lad and he enjoyed working with him, but he hasn't spoken to him for a long time. Basically, Ezra wasn't communicating with anyone. It's pretty clear that Ezra had a serious breakdown, I would say, in the past couple of years or so, and it's a very serious one. And I think what Pam Adby and Mike DeLuca did when they got him in and said, look, you need help. If you don't get help, the Flash movie is history. We will shelve that. And I think that was very important. So we don't come from an informed place because we're just reading about what he's allegedly done. But it's clear he had a mental breakdown. It's clear he's getting help for that. And, Jason Momoa knows Ezra Miller personally. We don't. So I don't think it's right to attack Jason Momoa for supporting Ezra Miller. And if he wants to support Ezra Miller, he can. Now, I'm going to be a bit of a cynic here and say, well, maybe the studio said, you know what, Jason, you're very popular with the fans, support Ezra Miller publicly. And maybe Jason's quite happy to do that. But I do know that all the Justice League cast members from the Snyder Cut are very good friends in reality and had a great time making that movie. and they're very supportive of each other. But where was Jason Momoa when all the bad press for Ezra was coming out? Nowhere. But now that, now that they're getting the help that they need, he's coming out. He's coming out when it's easy to support Ezra Miller. And, that's the entertainment business. No one's going to do anything to hurt their career. There's a lot of people who do not like Ezra Miller, who don't believe this movie should be released and believe that Ezra should actually be cut from this movie. It was impossible to do that. They decided to release it. They had to release it as is. Ezra is in every single scene, basically, of this movie. And that's something I want to jump to as well. I keep on hearing people on my, over on Twitter, on my YouTube saying, oh, it's all cameo bait, the Flash movie. It's a Batman movie. Right. I've just told you that Ezra Miller is in every fucking scene in this movie. So how can that be a Batman movie? You could argue that you've got Batfleck and Michael Keaton's Batman in this movie, so that makes it a Batman movie. No, right? Batfleck is at the beginning of the film. Then he's gone, okay? Then Michael Keaton is in the Flashpoint version of that movie. But while he's in that movie, he's playing off of Ezra Miller's Barry Allen and The Flash. How can this be a Batman movie and not a Barry Allen movie when you've got multiple versions of Ezra's Barry Allen in the movie? So, that's also a very, very bad take if you ask me. So no, this is absolutely not a Batman movie, and I'll argue with anyone who tries to claim it's a Batman movie. This movie has the Flash in it, front and center. It's Barry Allen's story, front and center, right? But you're going to have other characters. It's a Flashpoint movie, so you're going to have Batman, you're going to have Supergirl in it, but make no mistake that this is a huge Flash movie, and the central point of this movie is the Flash. End of story. Now, I think you need to prepare yourselves for this movie because, as I've mentioned before, there is a huge villain twist in this movie. And for the people who are saying Reverse Flash isn't in this movie, you're going to get a bit of a surprise. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil the villain twist. It's on the movie. Basically, the level of this villain twist is in terms of the movie Seven, David Fincher's Seven, starring Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, and Gwyneth Paltrow. Basically, Gwyneth Paltrow's head in a box, Kevin Spacey level villain twist. This is Ezra Miller's movie. This is a Flash movie, front and center. Now, James Gunn has been teasing again on Instagram. So he's basically put 10 DC characters up on his Instagram story, and he said, which characters will James Gunn use in the DCU? Which 5 characters? So I think he's got Red Hood there. I think he's got Deathstroke there. He's got Nightwing there. Basically, he's giving you a multiple choice, if you like. So 10 characters there. Which 5 will he use? He's definitely going to fill out the Bat family. There's no question about that. And I think this is something we've been gagging for as DC fans for a very long time. Snyder didn't do it. We wanted him to do it. We've always wanted to see the Bat family filled out in live action. And really, it's interesting that the closest film to do this was Batman and Robin. If you think about it, you had Batman, you had Robin, you had Batgirl. That's as close as we've had to be filling out the Bat family in a Batman movie, in DC live action. So we're going to get that. So I think that's really exciting. Now he's been kind of debating with fans about what he said about Superman's and Batman's age. So he's clarified what he said, and what he said was this, that his Superman will be under 40 years old. Now clearly he said this to try and justify the recasting of Henry Cavill as Superman. So, I thought he said that the character is going to be 25. Maybe I was mistaken. And he also said that Batman will be a couple of years older than Superman. I'm going to stick to my prediction of Superman being 30 years old in this film. Or will he be 30 years old? Actually, no. I'm getting confused. I'm confusing with my own predictions here. No, I predicted that Batman would be 30 years old in the DCU, and Superman will be around 25. So it's going to be very, very interesting, but he's basically now trying to correct the situation and say, all I said was he's under 40. Yeah, you said he's under 40 to try and justify, recasting Henry, but we'll see. I did quote tweet him saying, you do bring this on yourself, James, because I think, like, in terms of directors, he talks too much. He has too much of an appearance on social media. And I think, you've announced the slate that you're willing to announce so far. Let your slate do the talking. It's great that he interacts with fans. I've always liked the fact that James interacts with fans. I remember once responding to something he posted on Instagram years ago before he was involved with DC, or maybe when he just started being involved with the Suicide Squad, and I said something positive, and he responded to me, and I was in utter shock. And he just randomly responds to people, and I don't want him to not do that, but sometimes I think he creates his own problems, but he's not going to change. That's James. He's a very friendly guy on social media, and he likes interacting with the fans. But at the end of the day, you've got to have your messages clear. Did he say Superman was going to be 25, or did he just say he's going to be under 40? I don't know. I thought he actually clarified that he's going to be 25, but maybe I was wrong about that. So anyway, at this moment in time, Superman is going to be under 40. That's all we know about his age. And now we've been discussing on several videos what does the word legacy mean in terms of Superman legacy. And I was talking to a fellow Superman fan, and basically she was saying to me that the legacy part could have something to do with Krypton, because part of Superman's legacy is that he's an alien, that he's Kryptonian. And could this mean that we're going to see the history of Krypton in flashbacks, or using kind of some information crystal in the Fortress of Solitude? This could mean that we might even get Brainiac. In some versions in the comics, Brainiac was created by Jor-El and the Kryptonians as a defense mechanism in a civil war against Zod or other characters. And basically Brainiac goes wrong, he malfunctions, and this is how Brainiac becomes an actual villain. So the legacy part, and I actually like this theory, I think she's got a point here. I think the legacy part could be about Krypton. So I think Krypton will play a big part in this movie. Now, we know it's not an origin movie, but it doesn't mean the origin won't be kind of fed to us within the movie. And I think that's important, we don't kind of create an origin movie, but that origin is kind of fed in there somehow, because there's going to be normies who know nothing about Superman. So I'm so excited about DCU, so excited about Superman Legacy and all this slate. Gods and Monsters, bring it on. That's what I say. Now, let's talk about the downfall of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you know me, you know I'm a big DC fan. I'm not really a Marvel fan, but I think the first three phases were really, really good. I used to go and watch the movies. I used to buy the Blu-rays or 4Ks, even buy the digital copies as well. I thought it was a solid franchise, but somewhere along the way, it became a very, very overrated thing and became the most popular thing in entertainment. I think the things that have ruined today's entertainment are the internet, the MCU, the streaming service, and Rotten Tomatoes. These things have just ruined everything in entertainment. I think Rotten Tomatoes is the devil sitting on every movie consumers and TV shows and entertainment fans' shoulders. I think it's a terrible outlet. I don't think you can judge a film on a tomato meter, on a metric. You can't judge a movie on, you're not even judging it on good stats. You're judging it on somebody's opinion and a bunch of opinions, and I think that's so wrong. And this brings us, in terms of the downfall of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania getting a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. Is it a rotten movie or is it a good movie? Well, you can't judge a movie by a Rotten Tomatoes score. Now, we've also noticed that the fans' Rotten Tomatoes score on metrics, on other metrics as well, is really positive. So I think it's about 50 when you look at the verified critic scores, but the fan score's about 84. So that's a huge difference, isn't it? And people say to me, how can it be so different? These critics are so bad. They hate this, they hate that. They don't understand movies. Let me actually explain to you what the difference is when a fan reviews something to what a critic does. And also, we know that there's bombing, basically. They go on these sites and they either are ultra negative or ultra positive, and we must remember that as well. When a fan sees a movie, they go and watch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and they go, oh my God, it's Kang! Oh my God, it's Ant-Man! Oh my God, it's the Wasp! Oh my God, it's Michael Douglas! Oh my God, it's Michelle Pfeiffer! There's some half-decent CGI, some half-decent music. People are happy. They give it a B cinema score, and they start giving it positive reviews. That's all the normie MCU fan cares about, right? Oh, it's had an Easter egg. Oh, it's had a cameo. And by the way, apparently the 2 post-credit scenes are really, really good. Now, I haven't seen any Marvel content, MCU content, since episode 4 of Miss Marvel. And it's not because I didn't like Miss Marvel. It just wasn't for me, and it bored me. Also, I found the lecturing by the show to the Muslim people, and basically there's a scene in it where they go to, I think it's a mosque, and I apologise to the Muslim community if it isn't a mosque where they go to congregate religiously, but I think they go to a mosque and there's this lecturing where basically you got Miss Marvel, is it Camilla, or however you say her name, and her friend basically criticising the fact that I think girls have to sit on one end and men sit on the other. I think it's something like that. Now, here's the thing. That does sound a little bit problematic, but it isn't for you and me and Marvel Studios to critique the Muslim religion. And that's the problem, because there's lots of problems with Western religions. I mean, let's not forget Hollywood founded Scientology. So the irony isn't lost on me there. Anyway, so the situation is pretty serious over at the MCU. So what went wrong? What is the key element to the downfall of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Well, Phase 4 is the reason they are suffering, being criticised, and not making as much money as they once were. Now, you're going to hear 100 million opening, maybe even 200 million opening globally, I don't know. But we all know that it's going to have a sharp drop-off on the second weekend, and it won't get anywhere near the magic number of $1 billion. Basically, it was the same situation with Thor: Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Now, critics kind of liked Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. As I say, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I don't see in the near future going back to watch Marvel stuff. Not because I'm a DC fan and I'm saying I'm boycotting it or I don't want to see it. I'm just not motivated to see this stuff. Now, along with a lot of issues with the MCU, we heard yesterday that they're delaying the Marvels yet again. So this is the sequel to Captain Marvel starring Brie Larson. It was coming out in July, I think. It's now been delayed till November. And who knows, they may even delay it to next year. That movie must have serious problems. But is it a coincidence that this film was delayed just after it was announced that basically the latest MCU movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, has a rotten score, and all the criticisms towards the movie. Surely that isn't a coincidence that they've delayed this movie at the same time. Clearly, they're getting nervous and they're going to try and make changes. It doesn't really matter how many changes you make, right? The Ant-Man and the Wasp writer is a very talented writer. But when you come to the MCU, you're not allowed to be the talented writer you were elsewhere. When you come to the MCU, you're not allowed to be the talented director you once were. Think about how the MCU started. Jon Favreau is one of the best creatives in the business, and he's a pretty solid actor as well. Look at what he did with Iron Man. Now, Iron Man 2 wasn't a particularly great movie, and he got the sack from that franchise afterwards, but like the third movie was even worse than the second movie. I'd say the third movie was at least a lot more entertaining, but it wasn't a good movie. There's no question about that. But the first Iron Man is a really, really good, solid entry for the first step into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And personally, I like Thor, I like Captain America, the first Avenger, and all the first solo movies. I clearly like Avengers. So, but what went wrong? What changed? Because they started off making proper movies. Their mentality was to make interconnected movies, but they still made good movies. So they focused in the movie at hand, but they still kind of had an interconnected feel to them, and it worked. Where did the mentality change? Where did it all go wrong? I think this is a double-edged sword, if you like, because I think Phase 4 damaged the IP, and I don't know if it can be repaired. I don't know if they're willing to repair it. I think that's an issue in itself. I think the other issue is that Marvel really changed once everyone got so hyped for the first Avengers. They started going along the lines a lot more in the interconnected element of it. There had to be Easter eggs. There had to be an appearance from another Avenger. But look, people loved Phase 1. People loved Phase 2. I did start to hear a few rumblings with Phase 3, but it was still a solid phase. And, you know, and I said this the other day, at the end of Endgame, it's at the pinnacle. It's at its strongest. And what you do then is you go to work on your next phase and you introduce your next villain. Now, clearly, Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror and He Who Remained is a great casting choice. I loved him in Loki. Apparently, he's really, really good in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I believe that some people have criticized that he doesn't seem as powerful as Thanos. I don't think that really matters in itself. But it's interesting when even though I haven't seen it, you know, the things that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania are actually being criticized for are things that were celebrated previously in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We went from it being a S.H.I.E.L.D. franchise where everybody would celebrate kind of mediocre movies, but also there was that moment when WB announced Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, and Kevin Feige come out publicly and said, that movie worries me because I think it's going to be a great movie, and I think maybe we, as the MCU, Kevin Feige says, we need to get a little bit more serious. So when I saw Captain America: Civil War, I was stunned. I had a pain in the pit of my stomach because I knew that they'd ripped off and someone had given them information about BVS, because literally it's exactly the same movie. Now, people are going to start arguing with me and saying, no, it's not. It's got this, that, the other. Listen, when I see Black Panther's father die in the explosion, I fucking know that they've ripped off BVS, because basically it's the similar thing to the Capitol building explosion in BVS, and nobody can argue different. You know, and then Black Panther has this personal mission against Bucky. It's a bit like Batman having this personal mission against Superman once that explosion happens, and they fight. Batman and Superman fight in BVS. Captain America and Iron Man fight in Captain America: Civil War. But it's a bit more of a lighter tone, I agree. And the introduction of Spider-Man is awesome. But the introduction of Wonder Woman in BVS is equally as awesome. Captain America Civil War is a rip-off of Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. And the biggest irony of it all, while critics lamented Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, they hyped and shilled Captain America Civil War as a great movie, and the irony there isn't lost on me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Is Captain America Civil War a bad movie? No, I kind of really enjoyed it, but there's no question it's a BVS ripoff. But obviously, it was a much better franchise. But what I did notice after and from the first Avengers movie, because everyone loved the first Avengers, no matter what films they were putting out for the MCU, they were bringing home $1 billion. People loved them. Now, people don't like Thor 2. I forgot the title of that movie, but nobody seems to like that second movie, but they seem to have got away with it. I still think it made quite good box office. Even when they were getting things wrong, they were getting away with it. And in correlation to Zack Snyder's DCEU, basically, he was getting destroyed for doing things, but whatever they did, even when they were doing bad stuff, nobody was calling them out for it. And it was outrageous, and it was double standards. And this was the thing at the time. Zack Snyder was going down a gritty, realism, kind of darker kind of superhero franchise, and the MCU were bright, bubbly, with a few jokes. They were just easy movies that you just cruise through and forget about till the next movie. Now the MCU is being criticised for being the next MCU movie till the other MCU movie. The very things that everyone said they wanted from DC. So Phase 4 destroyed the MCU in a lot of people's eyes. Now, in that finale of She-Hulk, that was the line in the sand. That's when Feige and his creatives stuck a finger up at every fan. No, it wasn't just trolls. It was a finger up at everyone. We hate you. We're going to do whatever we want, and don't you dare criticize us. I am Kevin Feige, and I can do whatever the hell I want. That's what he did. That's what he said. That's why they did what they did in the season finale of She-Hulk. It was a disgrace. You cannot abuse the most important element in a consumer-based industry, just like you can't abuse your customers in a supermarket. And that's what She-Hulk did. Basically, it was the lowest of the lows for the MCU. We know what Phase 4 is. We know that its social commentary was done so badly, and a lot of the commentary they were doing could have been handled a lot better. But they started to make enemies, and some people started to say goodbye. We're not going to consume your shit anymore, because She-Hulk basically said, fuck the fans, we don't care about the fans. They did this to themselves. Then there's the VFX artists coming out complaining about the treatment, the workload they're getting, from Marvel Studios, and them using a multitude of VFX companies because they've got all this content. They've got Disney Plus content, and they've got cinematic content. And I think that's another problem with Phase 4. They overloaded the D Plus side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think in terms of DCU, James Gunn's got to be very careful here not to overload the DCU content. And I don't think he will. We're getting 4 movies this year because we were supposed to get 4 movies last year. They were postponed, so we're getting them next year. Next year, we're basically getting his, that Commando animated series, Waller, the Penguin series, and the Joker movie. So that's okay. So there's a few streaming things. The next year, we're going to get, the Batman 2 and Superman Legacy. So I think it's important that we get content every year, but not too much content. So what the MCU did with Phase 4 absolutely destroyed their reputation to the public. And now all of a sudden, people are bored and, are getting disinterested. And also, I think what happened last year is very, very interesting, because Phase 4 gave the rest of cinema a chance. People started looking at Disney, not just in terms of the MCU, but their animated side. I mean, Lightyear was a disaster. Meanwhile, we had Minions, The Rise of Gru, a huge success. Puss in Boots this year from DreamWorks, a huge success. So Disney are in trouble. All of a sudden, Bob Iger's back saying we're going to reduce the original content we do because we're not very good at general entertainment. That's what he said. So Disney are on the fall and Warner Brothers Discovery are on the rise. They've got this Titan Zaslav. He's come in and he's made very, very strong decisions like shelving Batgirl and, bringing in M. Night Shyamalan, a great director, as I mentioned yesterday. That's going to be great. Could M. Night Shyamalan actually write and direct the DC movie? Well, I hope so, because that statement from WB goes, we're not just interested in box office, because M. Night Shyamalan started off really popular, like with The Sixth Sense, but then his movies became kind of a more smaller gross with audiences, but he has got a cult fandom behind him. So he's very important. So what that says is we're bringing in an independent creative and we're absolutely going to let him do whatever the fuck he wants because he's been with Universal for a very long time. So it's my feeling that Disney are going down the pan and WB are on the rise. And as a WB fan, but especially a DC fan, I think this is a very, very exciting situation for DC fans. And the way that Marvel fans have treated DC, treated Zack Snyder in the past, I am so happy to see Marvel failing. I'm even happier to see Disney failing and celebrating WB and DC being on the rise. This has been Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Till I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.